So this whole bill was basically proposed because Ontario needs to build 1.5 million homes over the next 2 years. So this is Doug Ford's plan to sort of try and help that goal. I actually put notes on this one because there's a lot of information I don't want to miss, and I want to make sure I kept it structured. So, but I promise I'm only going to read this one paragraph, and that paragraph is: the ambitious legislation aims to address a critical shortage in housing through a long list of bold measures, such as zoning regulations to allow triplex units on lots that are zoned single-family residential. They also want to cut development charges and remove a layer from the approval process for projects with fewer than 10 units. So, off the bat, we see that this is sort of like a double faceted proposal. Number one, it is focusing on the new construction side. Number two, it's focusing on the rental side. So let's start with the new construction side of this. So essentially, we got to talk about how it's impacting the conservation authority. So this is one of the biggest things with the bill is with the new construction. Part of getting around these zoning regulations and stuff like that and removing layers of the approval process is sort of dancing around some aspects of the conservation authority. So the conservation authority is basically it's a local agency that protects the watersheds and protects essentially the nature. It's unique to Ontario, this conservation authority. And what it does is if you live in an area and you have green space around you, the reason you have that green space, more likely than not, is because a conservation authority had a say in it. And when we look at building outwards and expanding the construction in the greater Hamilton area, a lot of it is protected by the conservation authority, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's there to make sure that we don't just put concrete everywhere and sprawl out. However, sometimes they do have land that can be built upon. That building on would not have a direct major impact on communities. And that's sort of what the government's looking at. It says that they are looking to work with the Conservation Authority to identify land that is currently under their protection that they can give up for building. Now, this is why it's getting a lot of heat, this proposal. Right there, you can just tell from that. Environmentalists are up in arms, which you can't blame them because it's essentially removing a lot of the protection that the Conservation Authority has over that. And I mean, if you look at it from one aspect, it looks like, okay, forget about the conservation. Let's just build, 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 build. So I definitely see the negative to that because in my neighborhood, like I live on the Stony Creek Mountain right now. I love it. There's so much green space around, so many trails, and I absolutely love it. I couldn't imagine living in areas without it. But that doesn't mean that those areas, we're going to lose those areas right away. What this means is they want to build out smartly and target areas that they can safely build and try to expedite the process so it doesn't take as long to get the same result in the end. Number two, we also don't know the financial impact that this is going to have on municipalities. So they're proposing that they want to cut a lot of development charges out, specifically for people that are looking to build affordable housing or family-sized units for rental. What he wants to do is eliminate a lot of those development charges just to make it easier and more incentivized for builders to build those types of units because developers are always faced with paying heavy fees and all this to get these things built. But if they're trying to build affordable units, what they want to do is obviously build to maximize their pocket. If the fees can be reduced to build more affordable units for people, then that's what they're going to do. Now, a lot of people are mad about it because they're saying, developers are going to get all these breaks. They're going to start building like crazy. What the heck? But at the end of the day, if we need more housing, what other way is there to do it than build more, right? So I don't really get the aspect of saying, I get a lot of people saying, oh, Doug and his buddies are going to get rich off of this. And maybe some of his friends will because he's friends with developers. But at the end of the day, if these developers are going to go ahead and be incentivized to provide affordable housing, then I think it's a great option for that. Number three, he wants to eliminate appeals. This is another big part of it. So what this means, third-party appeals, I should specify. So essentially what this means is they're looking at when you go to develop anywhere, if you've ever seen a new development site, they always put up the big site plan and people can appeal it, third-party groups, people that want to protect an area for some reason, or a neighborhood committee that doesn't want a condo building going near them, they come and they appeal it. What this is going to allow is that tribunal to just deny those appeals and block these appeals, and in some cases just not even allow the appeals to come in. So this is going to speed up the process of development, which you know, I sit on either side of the fence with that because I don't believe in some areas. Like if you're in a low rise area, I would hate it if these condos just started popping up around me. But at the end of the day, I mean, they're trying to speed this process up and they're trying to give, you know, take power from the municipalities and just sort of go and build, let these developers go at it. Number four, they also touch on how it's going to affect the Heritage Act. So the Heritage Act is essentially it's an act in place to protect homes, buildings, places that could be deemed a heritage site. Like they have a long history in Hamilton, they're iconic, and we don't just want to see them torn down for this big glass box to be popped up. So they're looking at sort of refining those rules to see what should be defined as a heritage act. They're trying to streamline the process. That's the whole theme of this bill. Streamline, make it easy, get things built. So a lot of people are upset about that as well because, you know, there was that story about that soy sauce factory that kind of, I think it was in Toronto, that stopped the development from happening because it became heritage. So they're trying to stop that because you have this prime real estate that could be used for housing that is close to transit. That is not because of the heritage, but there are ways to work in conjunction, I think, with these heritage buildings, whether it's these old churches or old warehouses, whatever it is, to convert them into residential areas and maybe build something a little more tasteful instead of a glass box. I think there are ways to work with it. And then number five, aimed at not just development, but density. Yes, this is a huge one. I actually love this because the bill is not just targeting building out, which a lot of people are taking that into consideration, but it is talking about density because a part of this, which I'm going to talk about in the next section, but a part of this is building around existing transit. So density, I know we had that vote in Hamilton, which is what people wanted. So this should be happy news that now you can get your density instead of building out, but building more condos downtown next to transit. And this has benefits too, which I'm going to touch on in the next section.
Take